I like the expansive quality of the whole thing, as opposed to it always being about, uh, uh, you know, what do you call it? Like when you do a gallery showing for art, you're curating it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And musicians can get so opinionated, where they seem to, I only like this kind of music. With listeners too, they only like this kind of music, and they only like within this kind of music, they only like these people, and everybody else is kind of like they don't like that. They're a little distrustful. So I like the idea of it being very expansive, where you can see. I think I'm going to be learning a lot because you got a bunch of stuff planned that's genres and different instruments that I don't know that much about. So I'm looking forward to learning stuff.
Yeah, and also we're going to have, of course, a lot of special guests that when we get into territory where neither of us have any clue what's going on.
Oh, like opera or something, huh?
Yes, I happen to have a friend who is a director at the Met for several decades. He knows
What?
every opera singer alive, and knows a lot
Wow.
about the history. And I'll be getting him to come on the show and
Wow.
teach us who are the great divas
Yeah.
and opera singers and how their training, is a very high art of vocal virtuosity. And
Yeah, right.
and that's a great example of singers that we'll also be looking into. Not just the trained technical opera singers, but the virtuosos in their different genres, from
Yeah, yeah.
rock and roll to different Middle Eastern singers, some who've gotten famous, African singers, and they have their own high levels of technique and the perfecting their craft. So I'll have a lot of fun with things like that.
Cool. Can we do it? Can we do some tube and throat singing while we're at it?
Hey, those guys are amazing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's otherworldly.
Yeah.
I remember if an acquaintance of mine was complaining they had seen late Bob Dylan, like recently, and they were complaining about his voice being, super terrible and old and blah, gruff and
yeah.
And I was like, you're going to see Bob Dylan. It's not going to see Pavarotti or Caruso. That's when you go to see a singer make this instrument of the voice like that. This is a great, poet, like Nobel laureate poet for the ages. You go for that,
right?
Just to be in the presence of that. You don't go for like vocal quality. Give me a break.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point about but one thing I want to get back to that I thought was great, what you're saying, is about the expansive thing here. Yeah, because I think that's part of the goal, is to expose the casual listener who wants to learn more about these different genres. And why not listen to the best and try to, start with the great musicians who often do connect with audiences. What may be smaller than a pop star, but some of these names and these people we're talking about have a lot of very accessible music, and very enjoyable. And for example, we all know the most famous jazz record of all time, Kind of Blue, Miles Davis, and it's a very mellow kind of thing that's very accessible. But every single musician on those records is an absolute bona fide virtuoso.
For sure.
Bill Evans and John Coltrane and Cannonball. I mean, all of them, right? So that album, that easy listening jazz album that sells more records than any jazz album every year.
I know. And how many babies were made to that album?
Yeah. And
that's a kind of virtuosity right there.
There you go. Yeah. But those were virtuoso musicians playing that music, and they weren't dumbing it down. They were creating a thing,
Well, the legendary story is that Cannonball and Train walked out of that session kind of confused and thought it was really boring, because they had just recorded Milestones, which is a super exciting, fast jazz album,
Right.
And then Wynton Kelly joined the band, and Wynton Kelly swings like a demon, just like most swinginest piano player, one of the swinginest of all time. And Jimmy Cobb is like this real kind of refined time drummer, as opposed to Philly Joe, this kind of gregarious, force to be reckoned with. And Jimmy Cobb's artistry is in keeping a really sophisticated sense of swing popping along. And here they go recording with Bill Evans, who's not Wynton Kelly, these kind of unknown, like loosely put together compositions, and it's super slow and officially kind of boring.
That's funny. Yeah, but it's a masterpiece, right? So,
Right, of course.
yeah. So, so we're going to get into a lot of different things, and you know, also exploring the connection between composers and virtuosos, for example. Like, were virtuosos needed for certain composers to realize their concepts and
Right,
their vision,
right, and vice versa.
and,
Yeah.
and vice versa. So we'll also be exploring the physicality of virtuosity. The way that the physical instruments and their different physical approaches to these instruments, and how important that is. And so that's an aspect of virtuosity you might not think of immediately. And so some of the just fun conceptual things, or I call them our concept episodes, where we'll say, who are the best virtuosos at two different instruments on two different families of instruments? Who could play, like yourself, Timo, a saxophone and electric bass? Not instantly relatable. Like if you were good at cello, you might also be good at bowing the bass or a viola or something.
Well, then there's the really crazy guys who can play everything.
Right.
Sly Stone, Prince, Stevie Wonder,
Hermeto Pascoal.
Yeah, that guy's a high virtuoso. His piano playing, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Got to watch videos of that.
Yeah.
So we'd do a show just on him. He's that good.
Oh yeah.